The sky was a battlefield. Massive alien ships hovered over Earth's cities, their dark shadows stretching across the ruins of human civilization. The invaders had arrived without warning, their technology far beyond anything humanity could imagine. They called themselves the Krell, a ruthless species that thrived on conquest. In a matter of weeks, Earth's defenses had crumbled. General Marcus Hale stood on a crumbling rooftop, scanning the horizon through his binoculars. Smoke and fire painted the once vibrant skyline of New York City. The streets below were deserted, except for the occasional patrol of Krell drones searching for survivors. He lowered the binoculars, his jaw tightening. "We've lost too much already," he muttered. "But we're not done yet." Beside him, Captain Elena Ward adjusted her rifle. "General, most of our forces are either captured or dead. What's the plan?" Marcus's eyes glinted with determination. "The plan is to survive, Captain, and to make them bleed for every inch of this planet." Down in the underground bunkers, the last remnants of humanity huddled together. Families, soldiers, and scientists, all trying to hold on to hope in the face of despair. News broadcasts had stopped weeks ago, but whispers of resistance still spread. Small groups fought back where they could, striking at supply depots or ambushing isolated patrols. The Krell's overconfidence. The Krell believed their victory was inevitable. Their ships were impenetrable, their weapons devastating. To them, humans were a nuisance, a weak species unworthy of survival. They underestimated the resilience of the human spirit. High above the Arctic Circle, one of the Krell's commanders stood on the bridge of his ship. The alien's insect-like face twisted into a smirk as he reviewed the map of conquered territories. "This planet is finished," he hissed to his second-in-command. "Their resistance is scattered. They'd pose no threat." But deep beneath the Arctic ice, something ancient stirred. It had been hidden there for centuries, a secret weapon from a forgotten war. The Krell's scans had detected faint energy readings from the area, but they dismissed it as geothermal activity. A mysterious signal. Unbeknownst to the Krell, a signal had been sent. The Arctic chamber, buried beneath miles of ice, had been dormant for generations. Now, with humanity on the brink of extinction, its systems activated. Lights flickered on, illuminating rows of cryogenic pods. Inside each pod was a super soldier, a human enhanced with advanced technology and genetic modifications. They had been designed for one purpose: to fight in humanity's darkest hour. Back in the ruins of New York, Marcus received a strange transmission on his radio. It was filled with static, but a single phrase repeated over and over: "Project Sentinel. Active." "What the hell is Project Sentinel?" Elena asked, frowning. Marcus shook his head. "It's classified. High-level military stuff. But if it's still active, it might be exactly what we need." Desperate measures. The general made a decision. He ordered a small team to head north, toward the Arctic. The mission was risky. If the Krell intercepted them, it would mean certain death. But Marcus knew they had no choice. If Project Sentinel was their last hope, it had to be worth the gamble. The team moved through the night, evading Krell patrols and scavenging what supplies they could find. As they traveled, whispers of Project Sentinel began to spread among the survivors. Hope, fragile as it was, started to take root. Elena couldn't shake her curiosity. "Do you really think this Project Sentinel can save us?" she asked Marcus as they rested in an abandoned farmhouse. The general looked at her, his face lined with exhaustion. "I don't know. But I do know this. If we don't try, humanity is finished." The Krell discovered the signal. Meanwhile, aboard the Krell command ship, alarms blared. The faint energy readings from the Arctic had suddenly spiked. The Krell scientists analyzed the data, their faces growing grim. "This is no natural phenomenon," one of them reported to the commander. "There's something down there. Something powerful." The commander's smirk vanished. "Send a team to investigate, and prepare for orbital bombardment if necessary." The Krell, confident in their dominance, had no idea what awaited them beneath the ice. Building tension. As Marcus's team neared the Arctic, they encountered strange phenomena. The air grew colder, unnaturally so, and their instruments picked up faint electromagnetic pulses. Elena felt uneasy. "It's like the planet itself is alive," she whispered. They finally reached the edge of the chamber. A massive metallic structure loomed before them, half buried in ice. Strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface. Marcus approached cautiously, placing his hand on the cold metal. "What is this place?" Elena asked, her voice filled with awe. "It's our last chance," Marcus replied. The Arctic chamber buzzed with energy, its ancient systems roaring to life after centuries of silence. General Marcus Hale and his team stood frozen in awe as lights cascaded along the walls, illuminating a vast hall lined with rows of cryogenic pods. Each pod was a testament to humanity's forgotten past, a time when war had driven humanity to desperate measures. "Are those people?" Elena whispered, her breath visible in the icy air. Marcus stepped closer to one of the pods, brushing away frost that had accumulated over the centuries. Behind the glass was a figure, humanoid but larger, with enhanced muscles and faint circuitry glowing beneath the skin. The inscription on the pod's surface read, "Unit Alpha 17. Status: active." "Super soldiers," Marcus muttered, his voice laced with both wonder and dread. The rumors were true. Project Sentinel wasn't just a myth. The Krell's arrival. As the team absorbed the sight before them, a distant rumble echoed through the chamber. Marcus instinctively raised his weapon. "Did you hear that?" Elena asked, gripping her rifle tightly. "Stay alert," Marcus ordered, scanning the entrance. Unbeknownst to them, the Krell had tracked the signal to this very location. A reconnaissance team had landed, their objective clear: eliminate any threat that could challenge their domination. Outside the chamber, the Krell commander barked orders to his subordinates. "Seal off the area. Nothing leaves this place alive." A race against time. Inside the chamber, Marcus worked quickly to understand the control panel in front of him. Symbols and instructions in an ancient dialect flashed across the screen. "We need to wake them up," Marcus said, his voice urgent. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Elena asked. "We don't know what they're capable of, or if they'll even help us." Marcus turned to her, his expression grim. "We're out of options. If the Krell find this place before we activate them, it's over." Elena nodded reluctantly and began assisting him, her fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar controls. The First Awakening. As Marcus pressed a sequence of buttons, a deep vibration shook the chamber. One of the pods hissed as its seal broke, releasing a cloud of cold vapor. The figure inside stirred, their eyes flickering open. The first super soldier emerged, their towering form intimidating even as they struggled to regain their balance. Their eyes glowed faintly, scanning the room with mechanical precision. "Unit Alpha 17, the soldier said in a deep, resonant voice, awaiting orders. Marcus stepped forward cautiously. "You're a soldier. You were made to protect humanity. Well, humanity needs you now." The soldier's gaze locked onto Marcus. "What is the threat?" Before Marcus could respond, an explosion rocked the chamber. The Krell had breached the outer entrance. "They're here," Elena shouted, raising her weapon. The first battle. The Krell forces poured into the chamber, their alien weapons glowing ominously. Marcus and his team took cover, exchanging fire with the invaders. Sparks flew as energy bolts ricocheted off the metallic walls. Alpha 17 assessed the situation in an instant. Without hesitation, they moved with blinding speed, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to dodge incoming fire. With a single leap, they closed the distance to the Krell and engaged them in hand-to-hand combat. The super soldier's strength was unparalleled. One by one, the Krell fell, their advanced armor no match for Alpha 17's sheer power. Elena watched in stunned amazement. "That's impossible." Marcus smirked. "That's why they built them." The Krell's desperation. As the Krell realized the magnitude of their mistake, their commander ordered a retreat. Fall back. Regroup outside the structure. But it was too late. Alpha 17 pursued them relentlessly, ensuring none escaped. Inside the chamber, Marcus and Elena worked to activate more pods. If one soldier can do that, Elena said, imagine what an army could accomplish. Marcus nodded. Let's hope we have enough time to wake them all before the Krell return with reinforcements. A glimpse of the past. As more pods began to open, the chamber's holographic systems activated, displaying a projection of an old Earth general. The figure spoke in a solemn tone. If you're seeing this, then humanity is facing extinction. Project Sentinel was our last effort to preserve the human race. These soldiers were designed to fight the wars we couldn't win. Use them wisely, for they are both our greatest hope and our greatest responsibility. The message ended, leaving Marcus and Elena in silence. We're not just fighting for survival, Marcus said. We're fighting for the legacy of everyone who came before us. The Arctic chamber was no longer silent. The air was thick with the hum of advanced technology as more cryogenic pods opened one by one. Super soldiers, each a perfect blend of humanity's will to survive and the most advanced combat enhancements, stepped forward. Their eyes were fierce, glowing with a cold, calculating light. Marcus stood at the center of the room, his eyes fixed on the growing army of soldiers. It was a sight he had only imagined in the darkest corners of his mind. But now it was real. They had awakened a force unlike anything humanity had ever seen. General, we're ready, Alpha 17 reported, his deep voice carrying authority. The super soldier stood at attention, his imposing form casting a shadow across the room. Marcus nodded. We can't afford to wait any longer. The Krell will be back in force. We need to be ready. Elena stood by his side, looking over the army of soldiers now gathered before them. Are we really ready for this? We're outnumbered. The Krell will bring everything they have. Marcus looked over the soldiers, his eyes narrowing in determination. We have something they don't. We have the last hope of humanity. The Krell prepare for the final strike. Meanwhile, high above Earth, the Krell's forces were regrouping. Their initial shock at the awakening of the super soldiers had turned into rage. The commander, still reeling from the surprise, stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the data feed of the battle below. They've awakened something, the commander muttered, his alien eyes scanning the holographic map of the Arctic region. And it's not just one soldier. There are dozens. He slammed his fist against the console. Prepare for an all-out assault. Send in reinforcements. We will crush them all. The Krell's reinforcements were massive, their ships flooding the skies above Earth. The invaders were coming in full force, and this time they would not stop until every last human was exterminated. The first clash. As Marcus and his team prepared for the battle ahead, the ground shook beneath their feet. A loud explosion echoed in the distance. The Krell had arrived. We don't have much time, Marcus said, turning to Alpha 17 and the other soldiers. Move out. We fight for humanity. The super soldiers, now fully armed, followed his orders without hesitation. They moved swiftly, each step echoing in the cold silence of the Arctic. The soldiers had one goal: defend the last remnants of humanity. Elena and the rest of the human team took their positions, watching the horizon as the Krell ships descended. The invasion was about to become a war humanity was no longer willing to lose. The first Krell forces dropped onto the frozen ground with thundering steps, their armored exosuits clanking as they advanced. The super soldiers didn't wait. Alpha 17 led the charge, his enhanced strength allowing him to break through the Krell lines with ease. The battle was swift and brutal. Explosions ripped through the icy air, sending shockwaves across the Arctic landscape. The super soldiers fought with unmatched precision, using their enhanced agility to outmaneuver the Krell. Every strike was calculated, devastating the invaders' ranks. Marcus watched as the tide of battle began to turn in humanity's favor. His heart raced as he realized the true power of the super soldiers. This was what Project Sentinel had been designed for, the salvation of humanity in its darkest hour. But even as the Krell forces began to falter, Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The commander's orders were clear. They would not give up so easily. The Krell would keep coming until Earth was nothing but ashes. The power of humanity. Back in the heart of the battlefield, Alpha 17 faced off with the Krell commander. The two were evenly matched in strength, but the Krell commander lacked the speed and precision of the super soldier. With a mighty roar, the Krell commander lunged at Alpha 17, his massive blade swinging through the air. But Alpha 17 was faster. He sidestepped the attack and drove his fist into the alien's chest, sending the commander stumbling back. "This is where your invasion ends," Alpha 17 declared. The Krell commander, now in rage, swung again, but this time Alpha 17 was ready. With a fluid motion, he disarmed the alien and kicked him to the ground. "Retreat," the commander barked, clutching his side. "We'll return with reinforcements." "You haven't won." But it was too late. The Krell's forces were breaking. The super soldiers, relentless in their pursuit, made sure none of the invaders escaped. As the last of the Krell forces retreated into the sky, Marcus stood beside Alpha 17, breathing heavily from the intense battle. "We did it," Elena said, a sense of awe in her voice. "We actually pushed them back." Marcus's face remained stoic. "This is just the first battle. The Krell will be back, and they'll be angrier than ever. We need to prepare for the fight of our lives." The secrets of Project Sentinel. Back inside the chamber, as the super soldiers began to regroup, Marcus noticed something strange. One of the soldiers, a figure who had remained silent throughout the battle, stepped forward. "General Hale," the soldier said, his voice calm and steady. "There is something you need to know." Marcus turned to the soldier. "What is it?" "The Krell invasion was never an accident," the soldier replied. "They've been coming for Earth for a long time. Project Sentinel was only the beginning. The real battle is yet to come." Marcus's mind raced as he absorbed the soldier's words. What did this mean for humanity's future? And what had the Krell been planning all along? Before he could ask further questions, the soldier turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the chamber. The Arctic chamber was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of ancient machinery powering down. Marcus stood in the center, his mind racing with the words of the super soldier. The real battle is yet to come. He turned to Elena, who was still catching her breath after the fierce fight. Her face was smudged with dirt and sweat, but her eyes gleamed with determination. "What do you think he meant by that?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos they had just endured. Marcus glanced back toward the soldiers. They were regrouping, speaking in low voices, preparing for the next fight. But the uncertainty in their eyes mirrored his own. The Krell had been relentless, but something felt off. They weren't just invading. They were searching for something. "I don't know, Elena," he replied, rubbing his forehead. "But I have a feeling whatever it is, it's bigger than we realize." The Krell's secrets. Above Earth, the Krell command ship was in turmoil. The invasion force had suffered a significant defeat, but they were far from retreating. In the dark command room, the Krell commander paced back and forth, furious. "We underestimated them," he growled, his voice like a rasping growl. "The humans activated their ancient weapons, but this is only the beginning." A subordinate approached, presenting a holographic map of Earth. "Commander, our sensors detected something before the battle began. A hidden facility beneath the Arctic ice. We have reason to believe it's connected to Project Sentinel. There is something there." The commander stopped pacing, his cold, calculating eyes locked onto the hologram. "Then we've been too slow. We need to finish this before they fully awaken their forces." He turned to another officer. "Send in the rest of our fleet, and make sure the humans don't get any more surprises." Revelations. Back at the base, Marcus and his team were preparing to regroup and strategize. The day's victory had been hard-earned, but it had revealed just how strong the super soldiers were. Alpha 17 had proven to be an overwhelming force in battle, but there were still questions about their true capabilities. Marcus stood over a console, reading through the information they had gathered. It was a mixture of data from the super soldiers and old military records, piecing together what Project Sentinel had really been. "General, you need to see this," Elena called from across the room. Marcus hurried over to her, scanning the screen as she displayed a map of hidden military facilities across Earth. Many of these sites were deep in the ice, remote and inaccessible, yet Project Sentinel had built them. "The Krell knew about this," Marcus murmured, pointing to a marked facility. "They weren't just invading us. They were searching for something here, and I think we found it." Elena looked up at him. "You think they're after our ancient weapons. I think they're after something far more dangerous. Something humanity forgot about a long time ago," Marcus replied, eyes narrowing with suspicion. "We need to find out what it is before the Krell do." The path forward. The super soldiers were ready, their enhancements allowing them to withstand unimaginable conditions and fight like machines. But as Marcus and his team gathered, preparing to head toward the marked facility, there was one undeniable truth: this was a race against time. The Krell would stop at nothing to find whatever secret lay buried in the Arctic. The soldiers were outfitted with new gear, and Elena's team, though small, was ready for whatever was to come. There was a fire in their hearts now, a fire fueled by the desire to survive and to defend Earth at all costs. Alpha 17 stepped forward. "Commander Hale, we are prepared to advance. The facility you seek is miles beneath the ice, but the terrain is hostile, and the enemy will likely have reinforcements." "We don't have much of a choice," Marcus replied. "We head out now. We can't let them find what they're looking for first." The descent. The team set out, moving swiftly across the frozen wasteland. The ground was hard, cracked in some places, and the bitter cold gnawed at their bones. But the soldiers moved with purpose, using their advanced equipment to navigate the harsh landscape. As they reached the designated area, the air grew colder. There was a heavy silence in the air, an unnerving stillness. Something felt wrong. "Stay sharp," Marcus whispered. "We're close." They descended into the ice, using advanced drills to break through the thick layers. It took several hours, but finally they reached the entrance to the hidden facility. The massive metal doors loomed in front of them, aged and rusted from decades of neglect. Yet the machinery inside buzzed with an eerie hum, suggesting that something was still functioning. "We need to move quickly," Marcus said. "Get inside." The team made their way through the narrow corridors of the facility, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. It was clear that this place hadn't been touched in years, but it was also clear that the Krell knew exactly where it was. The final countdown. Inside the depths of the facility, Marcus and the super soldiers found what they had been searching for: an enormous sealed vault. It stood at the center of a massive chamber, surrounded by high-tech security systems. "This is it," Elena said, her voice a mix of excitement and fear. "Whatever the Krell want, it's in there." But before they could access the vault, alarms began blaring, and the facility's lights flickered. The door at the far end of the room opened, revealing a platoon of Krell soldiers. "Move," Marcus shouted. The battle that followed was fierce. The super soldiers fought with ferocity, taking down the Krell soldiers with precision and speed. But the real battle wasn't about defeating the invaders. It was about protecting what lay inside the vault. The sound of Krell soldiers advancing echoed through the narrow, dimly lit hallways, their heavy footsteps growing louder with every passing second. Marcus stood in front of the massive vault door, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His hands trembled slightly as he activated the ancient access panel, his mind racing with the possibilities of what lay inside. Come on," Marcus muttered under his breath, eyes glued to the screen as a complex sequence of numbers and symbols flashed in front of him. The Krell were closing in, and they didn't have much time. "Marcus," Elena's voice cracked through the tension, her tone urgent. "We need to move. The Krell won't be far behind." But Marcus couldn't look away from the panel. The screen blinked, then froze. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. Suddenly, the massive vault door rumbled open with a sound that could have shaken the entire facility. A surge of cool air flooded the room, carrying with it the scent of aged metal and something else. Something ancient. The chamber inside was vast. Even with the low lights flickering above, they could see the walls were lined with strange, holographic displays. Displays that hadn't been touched for centuries. Marcus's heart pounded. "What is this?" he whispered. Behind him, the super soldiers moved swiftly into the vault, weapons raised, eyes scanning for threats. The vault seemed to stretch endlessly before them. As they ventured deeper, the glow of the holographic screens grew stronger, illuminating the secrets hidden within. There, at the center of the vault, was a pedestal, on which rested an object wrapped in dark cloth. The air felt heavy as Marcus approached it, unable to tear his gaze away. "Should we open it?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the tension in her tone clear. Marcus didn't respond. He carefully unwrapped the cloth, revealing the gleaming metallic sphere, smooth, polished, and almost pulsing with energy. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. But as soon as Marcus touched it, the entire facility seemed to react. The walls began to hum. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. And then, with a sudden, jarring noise, the sphere came to life. A deep voice, unearthly and ancient, filled the air around them. "The final defense, humanity's salvation, is awakening." The team froze. "What the hell was that?" Elena asked, her hand tightening on her weapon. Before Marcus could respond, the ground beneath them trembled violently. The walls cracked, and the overhead lights blinked erratically. "We're not alone anymore," Marcus muttered. "Get ready." The Krell's descent. High above the earth, the Krell fleet hovered, waiting for their orders. The situation had escalated faster than they had expected. Their forces had taken a heavy toll, but they had yet to secure the one thing that mattered, the relic that would allow them to control Earth's forgotten power. In the Krell command ship, the commander stood before a massive screen, his long, pale fingers drumming against the console. His dark, lifeless eyes studied the data as it poured in, showing the humans' progress in the vault. "Too late," the commander growled. "They've activated it. Prepare the next phase." The awakening. Back in the vault, Marcus stared at the now activated sphere, his eyes wide with both awe and fear. The voice had stopped, but the hum continued. Something was stirring, something that could change everything. Suddenly, the floor beneath them cracked open, revealing hidden mechanisms. Massive metal doors began to rise from the ground, revealing tanks, ancient but far from outdated. Their sleek, intimidating forms towered above the group. These were no ordinary vehicles. They were the remnants of humanity's greatest military creations, buried deep beneath the ice for centuries. "Are those the relics?" Elena whispered. "Yes," Marcus replied. "But I don't think we're the only ones interested in them." Outside the vault, the sound of Krell soldiers' boots grew louder. The invasion force had arrived. "Time's up," Marcus said. "We need to move. The Krell will stop at nothing to take this from us." The super soldiers quickly fanned out, taking position around the vault as Marcus and Elena rushed to the control panel at the far end of the room. They needed to secure the relics before the Krell could reach them. But as they worked, a terrifying realization dawned on Marcus. The sphere had activated more than just tanks. It had awakened something else, something even more dangerous. A new weapon. In the distance, a low, rumbling sound echoed through the vault. The soldiers stiffened, their eyes darting to the shadows at the far end of the chamber. The ground shook again, harder this time. Something massive was moving beneath them. "Get ready," Marcus shouted as the walls trembled once again. He could hear the deep growl of a colossal machine, its footsteps shaking the vault like an earthquake. The room lit up with blinding white light as the soldiers took position, weapons raised. Out of the shadows, an enormous, armored war machine emerged. Its mechanical body was covered in thick, battle-worn plating, glowing with the energy from the sphere. It was the final weapon, humanity's ultimate defense. Target acquired. The voice of the machine hummed in a cold, metallic tone, initiating defense protocols. The Krell soldiers had reached the vault's entrance, and it was clear they weren't going to stop. The last defense. As the first Krell soldiers entered the room, they stopped in their tracks, gazing in shock at the newly awakened super soldiers and the massive war machine that now stood between them and the relics. The Krell had never expected humanity to be able to fight back like this. "Move forward." The Krell commander barked from his ship, watching the live feed from the battlefield. His forces began to push forward, determined to claim the relics and crush humanity's last hope. But humanity's response was swift and brutal. The tanks powered up, and the super soldiers, faster, stronger, and more lethal than any Krell soldier, began to fight with a newfound ferocity. The war machine's massive cannons fired, sending shockwaves through the vault. One by one, Krell soldiers fell as they advanced, unable to match the might of the ancient technology now fighting on Earth's behalf. But there was one thing that was becoming more apparent with every passing moment. Humanity's ancient defenses were no ordinary weapons. They were something far more devastating. As the battle raged on, Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The Krell had underestimated them once, and they would do so again. And this time, Earth would win. The roar of the Krell soldiers echoed through the vault, their numbers growing with every passing moment. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, but now the true power of Earth's ancient super soldiers and their machines had been unleashed. Marcus and his team were no longer fighting for survival alone. They were fighting for the future of humanity. The massive war machine towered over the battlefield, its metallic body gleaming as it fired with precision. The Krell soldiers scrambled to regroup, but it was clear that they were unprepared for the relentless onslaught from Earth's ancient technology. "Keep pushing forward," the Krell commander barked from his command ship, his face twisted with anger. "They can't stop us all." But he was wrong. The tide had turned. Marcus stood alongside Alina, watching as the war machine tore through the Krell forces with devastating efficiency. It moved like a juggernaut, its cannons firing in rapid succession, obliterating everything in its path. "Is this really happening?" Alina asked, her voice filled with awe as she watched the Krell forces crumble under the relentless attack. "It's happening," Marcus replied, his gaze locked on the battlefield. But it's not over yet. The battle intensifies. As the Krell regrouped, their strategy shifted. They knew they couldn't match the raw firepower of the war machine, so they started deploying their most advanced weapon, a massive energy shield that blocked the machine's powerful blasts. The shield shimmered with an eerie blue light, absorbing the energy from every shot and reflecting it back toward the machine. The super soldiers, too, found themselves under fire from a new breed of Krell soldiers, elite warriors equipped with energy swords and personal force fields. These new Krell were faster, stronger, and better equipped than anything the team had faced before. "We need to take down that shield," Marcus shouted to Alina as he ducked behind a massive pillar, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts from the Krell. "I'm on it," Alina called back, sprinting toward a nearby terminal that was connected to the vault's ancient systems. She had a plan, and they needed it to work if they were going to turn the tide of the battle. A desperate gamble. Alina's fingers flew over the console, her heart pounding as the energy shield flickered before her. She had to act quickly. "Marcus, I need a few more seconds," she called out, her voice strained. Marcus nodded, knowing that every second counted. He sprinted toward the front lines, where the super soldiers were engaging the Krell head-on. With his rifle in hand, he joined the fight, cutting down Krell soldiers left and right. Despite their advanced weaponry, the Krell were no match for humanity's awakened super soldiers. But the energy shield still posed a major threat. Almost there, Elena shouted, her voice full of urgency. The tide turns. With a final, determined push, Elena cracked the code. The energy shield flickered, then collapsed, just as the Krell launched another wave of attacks. The super soldiers wasted no time. They advanced, their weapons charging as they closed in on the enemy. Marcus saw his chance. Now, he shouted. The massive war machine fired again, its weapons scorching the battlefield. With the shield down, the Krell forces were exposed. It was a slaughter. The super soldiers moved in, their speed and precision unmatched as they tore through the remaining Krell soldiers. The Krell commander, watching from above, realized too late that the tide had completely turned. His forces were in disarray, and Earth's final defense had proven to be far more powerful than he had ever imagined. Desperation filled his eyes as he gave one last command. Retreat. All units, fall back. But it was already too late. The retreat was a disorganized mess, with Krell forces scattering in every direction. The super soldiers and war machine pressed on, cutting down their enemies with ruthless efficiency. The last stand. In the final moments, the Krell commander watched in disbelief as the last of his troops fell, one by one. The once mighty invasion force had been shattered, and the ancient machines of Earth had proven their worth. As Marcus and Elena made their way to the central command area, they stood in the midst of the carnage, their weapons lowered, breathing heavily. Is it over? Elena asked, her voice filled with exhaustion, but a hint of hope. Marcus looked around at the fallen enemies, the wreckage of the Krell fleet, and the dormant machines that had once been Earth's hidden defenses. For now, Marcus said, but this war, it's far from over. A new beginning. With the Krell retreating into the depths of space, Earth's future was uncertain. Marcus and Elena knew that while the battle had been won, the war was far from finished. The Krell would return, and humanity would need to be ready. But with the awakening of Earth's ancient fleet, they now had the tools to fight back, not just for survival, but for victory. The relics of Earth's past had proven to be humanity's greatest weapon, and now they had a chance to reclaim their place in the galaxy. But as they stood in the aftermath of the battle, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that there were even greater challenges ahead. The secrets of Earth's ancient fleet had only just begun to reveal themselves, and humanity was only scratching the surface of what they could accomplish. And so, the journey continued. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, humanity had hope. The Krell commander had long since retreated, leaving only scattered remnants of his once powerful invasion force. The battlefield was littered with debris, the silent echoes of destruction hanging in the air. Marcus, Elena, and the remaining super soldiers stood among the wreckage, their bodies weary but their spirits stronger than ever before. The war machine that had been their savior powered down with a low hum, its glowing weapons fading into a faint glow. Earth's ancient fleet, long hidden and forgotten, had come to life in a moment of desperation, and they had won the battle. But the question that lingered in Marcus' mind was one that no one could answer yet. Had they won the war? As the team moved across the battlefield, gathering their fallen comrades and surveying the wreckage of the Krell forces, a new sense of purpose began to rise within them. Humanity had faced annihilation, and yet, against all odds, they had fought back. But the Krell were not known for retreating quietly. They would regroup, and they would return with a vengeance. Marcus had no doubt about it. But Earth's ancient fleet held a secret, a power that had been dormant for centuries, hidden away in the frozen reaches of the Arctic, had awoken when humanity's darkest hour had arrived. Now that they had tasted victory, they knew that this was only the beginning. The super soldiers were not just Earth's last line of defense. They were a symbol of humanity's resilience, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could stand tall. The secrets of the Arctic Vault. As the team began their trek back to the Arctic Chamber, the place where the super soldiers had been hidden for generations, Elena's voice cut through the silence. "We need to learn everything we can from the fleet," she said. "We don't know how long this peace will last. There's so much we don't understand about what we've just unleashed." Marcus nodded grimly. The fleet was more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered, and yet they had barely scratched the surface of its power. What if there were more weapons, more machines, or even more super soldiers hidden within the vault? Could they tap into that power and use it to stop the Krell for good? "Agreed," Marcus said. "We need to prepare for the next phase. This fight is far from over." As they approached the vault, Elena pulled up the data logs from the terminal inside. The screens flickered to life as the ancient systems hummed with power. The Arctic Chamber, once a forgotten relic, was now the heart of humanity's future. She scrolled through the data, her eyes narrowing as she uncovered new information about the fleet. The fleet was designed for something far greater than just defending Earth, she muttered under her breath. It was meant for intergalactic warfare. There are designs for ships, weapons, and even enhancements to our soldiers, things we never dreamed of. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The thought of what humanity could become, using the knowledge and power of this fleet, was both exciting and terrifying. They had always been the underdogs in the galaxy, but now they had the means to change the balance of power. But at what cost? A new mission, beyond Earth. As they explored the vault's secrets, Marcus couldn't help but wonder, what if there was more out there? The Krell were just one threat in a vast galaxy. Earth was but a small speck in the universe, and who knew what other enemies might be lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. "We need to take the fight to them," Marcus said, determination in his voice. "We need to go beyond Earth and stop the Krell before they can regroup. And we need to make sure no one else can threaten us the way they did." The super soldiers gathered around, their faces set in grim resolve. It was a dangerous mission, one that could take them far from home and into the unknown reaches of the galaxy. But there was no turning back now. Earth's fate, and the fate of humanity, depended on them. "Are you ready?" Elena asked, her eyes fixed on Marcus. "Always," he replied. The journey begins. With the war machine powered back up and the super soldiers in full battle gear, Marcus and his team set their sights on the stars. Earth's ancient fleet would be their new weapon in the fight against the Krell, but they couldn't afford to wait. The galaxy was vast, and the Krell were only one of many enemies they would have to face. As they boarded their ships, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The war was far from over, and they had no idea what challenges lay ahead. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer helpless. They were strong. They were ready. The final battle had been won, but the real war had only just begun.